Why does practicing Buddhism sometimes feel more painful? Have you ever started walking the spiritual path, only to find yourself asking, why does it hurt more now? Why do I feel more lost, more broken, more vulnerable than before? You thought the path to enlightenment would be peaceful, you imagined silence, serenity, maybe even bliss, but instead, it feels like your world is falling apart, and here's the strange part, you chose this path. You began meditating, letting go of attachments, practicing compassion. You started to observe your mind, your emotions, your impulses, and slowly, the things you used to tolerate became unbearable, the noise inside your head grew louder, your heart cracked open in ways you didn't expect. You were told Buddhism is about ending suffering, so why? Does it feel like suffering is just beginning? There's something no one tells you when you begin to awaken, something profound and deeply uncomfortable. Awakening doesn't begin with peace, it begins with pain, because before you can transcend suffering, you must see it, and not just the suffering around you, but the suffering within you, the kind you've spent your whole life avoiding, the pain that lives in your habits, your fears, your desires, the kind of suffering that's been hiding beneath distractions, relationships, achievements, even your smile. The path to awakening isn't about escaping pain, it's about turning toward it. Looking it in the eyes, and realizing, it was always there. Think of it like this, imagine living in a room filled with smoke. You've been breathing it for so long, you no longer even notice it. But one day, you open a window, just a crack, and the fresh air rushes in, and suddenly, you feel the smoke, you choke on what you never noticed before, not because the smoke got worse, but because your awareness got clearer. That's what spiritual practice does, it opens the window, it lets truth in, and the first breath of truth can hurt, so when the pain comes, when you feel like you're breaking instead of blooming, know this, you are not failing, you are awakening, the suffering you feel is not new, it's simply being revealed, the fog is lifting, the illusions are crumbling, and yes, it's hard, but this is the beginning of true freedom, not comfort, not ease, but freedom. Before there was peace, before there was nirvana, before there was the promise of liberation, there was a simple, piercing truth, life is suffering. That's where the Buddha began, the very first of the Four Noble Truths, pause, voice soft, almost whispering, not to scare us, not to make us feel hopeless, but to wake us up, because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. When the Buddha said life is dukkha, he wasn't just talking about pain in the obvious sense, not just illness, loss, poverty, or heartbreak, he was pointing to something more subtle, more persistent, the unease that follows us everywhere, the discontentment that lingers, even in moments of pleasure. It's the emptiness you feel after getting what you wanted, the fear that joy won't last, the craving for more, always more, the itch you can't quite scratch, the sense that something, somehow, is always missing. This is dukkha. It is not always dramatic, it doesn't always look like pain, sometimes, it hides behind a smile, a perfect photo, a quiet night with a restless heart. We chase, we cling, we hope, and the moment we touch happiness, it begins to slip through our fingers, because everything is impermanent. So why does the path begin here? Why not skip straight to the bliss? Why meditate on suffering? Because suffering is the key, it's the mirror that reveals the truth about life. It strips away illusion, it shows us where we're holding on, and what we're holding on to. The first noble truth isn't meant to depress us, it's meant to free us, because once you see the trap, you no longer walk into it blindly. The Buddha didn't say, you must suffer. He said, look, this is suffering, see it clearly, understand its nature, and you can end it. It's not a condemnation, it's an invitation to step out of the cycle. But here's the twist no one expects, when you begin to truly see suffering, it hurts more at first, because the blindfold is coming off, the truth is raw, and clarity can sting. You see the way you've been running in circles, you see the ways you've hurt others, and yourself, you see the games of desire, ego, and fear, and for a while, it feels heavier, because ignorance was lighter, but freedom is always found on the far side of truth. So if you've been feeling more pain since You began this journey, it does not mean you're lost, it means you're waking up, you're beginning to see, and that sight is sacred. Imagine this, you walk into a dimly lit room, the walls are stained. The floor is covered in dust, but because the light is low, you don't notice much. It's not beautiful, but it's bearable. Now, someone turns on a bright, white light, suddenly, you see everything, the dirt, the cracks in the wall, the cobwebs in every corner, the smell that was always there becomes unbearable. But here's the thing, nothing changed, the room was always like that, the only difference is that you can finally see. This is what happens when we practice. Spiritual growth is not about making life messier, it's about seeing the mess that was always there. Suffering doesn't increase. Awareness does, and awareness is the mirror that shows us truth, not a filtered truth, not a comfortable truth, but the kind of truth that sets us free. When you start practicing Buddhism, you sharpen your inner vision, you sit in silence, you become mindful of your breath, your thoughts, your emotions, and suddenly, you start noticing the noise you used to live with. You feel the tension in your body, you hear the judging voice in your mind. You realize how often you're clinging, how easily you react, how deeply you fear impermanence. It's not that your suffering is growing, it's that you're finally becoming honest about it. You used to numb the pain, with food, with work, with entertainment, with busyness, but now, you're sitting with it, you're watching it arise, you're not distracting yourself, and yes, that hurts, because the mirror shows you things you didn't want to see. But here's the miracle, what you see, you can transform. This is why Buddhist teachings emphasize mindfulness, not to make us more sensitive, but to make us more aware. And awareness is not weakness, it's the beginning of power. You see your anger rising, before it explodes, you feel your fear, and breathe with it, you notice your craving, and choose not to feed it. Little by little, you start taking back the reins of your life. Not by avoiding pain, but by meeting it with clarity, with compassion, with courage. Think of awareness as a torch that lights the darkest places inside you. It doesn't create monsters, it just reveals them, and when you see them, you are no longer their prisoner. So yes, it may feel like things are getting worse, but what's really happening is that you're waking up, you're starting to see what's real, what's been running your life, and now you have the choice to change it. Because the pain that is seen is pain that can be healed. There comes a moment in every seeker's path where the ground begins to shake, not because the world is falling apart, but because the self you once knew is starting to unravel, and that's terrifying. Voice intensifies slightly, like exposing a hidden truth. You thought spiritual practice would be peaceful, that meditation would feel like floating in clouds, that awakening would be soft, like a sunrise, but what you're feeling is war. An inner rebellion, and the one leading the resistance is your ego. The ego is the identity you've built over years. I am smart. I am strong. I'm successful. I'm not good enough. I always get hurt. All of it, the pride, the fear, the masks, the scars, the ego clings to those identities, because without them, it doesn't know who it is. So when you sit down to meditate, when you begin to observe your mind, when you choose silence over reaction, love over control, presence over performance, the ego panics. It whispers, this is dangerous. You're losing yourself. You're becoming weak. You won't survive without me. It starts throwing everything it can at you, old traumas, doubts, restlessness, anger, even spiritual pride, not because it's evil, but because it's afraid. Think of it like this, if you've lived your whole life in a prison cell, the darkness becomes familiar. You decorate the walls, you write your name on the stone, you say, this is who I am. But then one day, you see the door was never locked, you could leave, but stepping out means letting go of everything you called me, and that's terrifying. Even if freedom is waiting, even if light is right outside, the ego would rather be safe in a cage than risk disappearing in the unknown. This is why spiritual practice can feel harder, the deeper you go, because you're not just learning peace, you're losing false identities. You're dying to the person you thought you were. And death, even a symbolic one, is never painless. But here's the paradox: you are not the ego, you are the awareness behind it, you are the silence watching the storm, you are the sky. Not the passing clouds. The ego's resistance is a sign that your practice is working. It means the illusion is being exposed, the mask is cracking, the false self is trembling, and yes, it may scream louder, it may throw a tantrum, it may try to seduce you back into old patterns, but you no longer need to obey. You can breathe, witness, stay present, and the more you do, the more the ego softens, not because you killed it, but because you outgrew it. Spiritual growth is not the destruction of the ego, it's the transcendence of it. You stop being ruled by it, you stop identifying with its fear, and one day, you'll look back and smile at how hard it fought, right before it let go. Let me ask you something: have you ever started crying, and didn't even know why? Have you ever felt a sadness that didn't seem to belong to any one moment, but lived deep inside you, as if it had been waiting for years to be seen? That is the pain of healing. When you begin to walk the spiritual path, you don't just become more peaceful, you become more sensitive. Your heart that was once numb starts to feel again, and sometimes it feels everything at once: grief, shame, loneliness, longing, regret. You think, what's wrong with me? I'm practicing, I'm meditating, I'm reading the sutras, why do I feel worse? But you're not breaking, you're opening. Imagine a wound that has been covered for years. You never cleaned it, you just kept it wrapped, ignored, forgotten. Now imagine removing the bandage. Air hits it for the first time, sunlight touches the raw skin, it stings, of course it does, but that sting means it's finally beginning to heal. Spiritual practice brings light to wounds you didn't even know you had, and light hurts the eyes at first, but only because you've been living in the dark. You start to notice the tension you carry, the sadness behind your smile, the ways you abandoned yourself to please others, the parts of you that never felt worthy. And as these truths rise, they bring tears. They bring pain, but this isn't suffering born from failure, it's the suffering of awakening. The tears you cry now aren't signs of weakness, they are the cleansing of years of silence. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The tears I shed yesterday have become rain. I am the tree that received that rain and grew." Don't fear your emotions, they are not the enemy, they are messages. They are your body's poetry, your soul's way of speaking what your mind was too afraid to say. In Buddhism, we don't push emotions away, we hold them, we breathe with them, we bow to them, like old friends who have carried us through battle. You are not falling apart, you are falling into truth, and truth isn't always gentle, but it is liberating. You are not meant to numb your pain, you are meant to sit beside it, with presence, with compassion, with patience, and little by little, as you give your sorrow space to breathe, it transforms. Tears turn to peace, grief turns to gratitude, and the wound becomes wisdom. So if you're hurting right now, not despite your practice, but because of it, take heart. You're not going backward, you're going deeper, and the deeper you go, the more light you will find. Remember, you are not broken. You are becoming whole. There's a common misunderstanding about spiritual practice. We think that to find peace, we have to escape. We think that true enlightenment means leaving behind the world, running away from its chaos, its noise, its desires. But here's the truth: peace is not in escaping life, it's in embracing it, fully, completely, without reservation. Let me tell you a story. Once, there was a monk who went to a master and said, "I want to be free, I want to be at peace, show me the way." The master pointed to a field, filled with tall, swaying grass. "Sit here," the master said, "sit in the midst of the field, and stay for as long as it takes, until you find peace." The monk sat, waiting for the quiet to descend, but as time passed, he felt every itch on his skin, every sound seemed to irritate him. The wind felt too harsh, the sun too hot. The monk rose, and returned to the master. "I couldn't find peace. The field was full of distractions, it was too much for me." The master smiled. "Did you notice, you were already trying to escape?" We often believe peace comes from the absence of noise, the absence of discomfort, the absence of problems. But here's the awakening: true peace doesn't come from escaping anything, it comes from entering everything, with open arms. It's in finding peace within the noise. In the middle of the mess, in the chaos, you can't change the world, you can't make it quieter, but you can change how you respond to it. The Buddha taught us, the world is full of suffering. But he didn't tell us to escape from it, he said, live with it, understand it, transform it. And that transformation doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in the world, in the ordinary moments, in the messiness of relationships, work, family, and everything in between. The true path is not a path that runs away from life, it is the path that walks through it. It is the path that meets each moment with mindfulness, with awareness, with compassion. It is in doing your work with presence, listening to your loved ones with understanding, speaking with kindness, and even in the midst of struggle, choosing to stay present. What would it be like if you embraced your life as it is, if you didn't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, but saw that this moment is where peace is born? Your practice isn't a retreat, it's a surrender to what is, to the truth of now. You don't need to run from the storm, because inside you, there's a calm that can weather it. There's an unshakable peace, that's not dependent on circumstances, but on your ability to be fully present, fully alive. The world will still challenge you, life will still throw its tests, but the more you enter it with mindfulness, the more you'll discover, the path is not somewhere out there, far away in a mountaintop retreat. It's here, in the moments you're already living, in the relationships you're already in the emotions you're already feeling. You don't need to escape the world to find peace. You just need to find peace in how you live it. Let me ask you something, have you ever felt like, the harder you tried to control life, the more out of control it became? Have you ever grasped so tightly to an idea, a desire, or a plan, only to watch it slip through your fingers, like sand in the wind? You see, the more we try to hold on, the more we lose. The more we cling to what we think we need, the more it eludes us. Music softens, a moment of stillness, like a deep breath. This is the paradox of life. True freedom comes from letting go. When we think of freedom, we often picture a life without constraints, a life where we can do whatever we want, go wherever we please. But freedom isn't just about doing. It's about being at peace, being whole, being present. And to truly experience freedom, we must first let go of the things that weigh us down, our attachments, our desires, our fears. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. When we cling to things, whether they're people, ideas, or outcomes, we bind ourselves to a future that may never come, and in doing so, we miss the present moment, we miss life. You don't need to control life, you don't need to fight it. You don't need to change the world to find peace, you just need to let it be. Acceptance isn't about resignation, it's not about saying, I give up, it's about saying, I surrender. When you surrender, you're not giving up on life, you're giving up on the need to control it, you're letting go of the belief that things should be a certain way, you're trusting that life, with all its beauty and chaos, is unfolding exactly as it needs to. And in that surrender, in that letting go, there is a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that isn't dependent on what happens, but on your ability to simply be with it. To meet each moment with open arms, not pushing it away, but embracing it fully. True freedom isn't the absence of challenges, it's the ability to meet them without fear. It's the courage to let life unfold as it will, knowing that you don't have to control it to be happy. Let go of the need to fix everything, let go of the need to be right, let go of the need to always be in control, let go of the need to escape, and instead, let yourself be free, free to love, free to live, free to feel, free to be you. Because in the end, freedom is not something you chase, it is something you allow. It's the moment you stop fighting, the moment you stop trying to outrun your own life. It's the moment you say, I am enough. And when you say that, when you know that, the whole world opens up. The freedom you've been seeking was never out there, it was always within you, waiting for you to finally let go, and to trust. So as you walk your path, remember, the less you try to control, the more you'll experience the true freedom that comes with acceptance, and that is the ultimate peace. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery and awakening. If these teachings resonated with you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can stay connected to the wisdom that will continue to transform your life. And as always, I invite you to leave a comment, share your thoughts, your reflections, your journey. Your path to peace is yours, and we walk it together. This is Zen Buddhism Wisdom. See you in the next video.